Hello, my lovely learners. Welcome to Bloom and Grow Education. My name is Meredith. Today's lesson is a writing lesson. It's suitable for students probably more around the year 4, 5, 6 age group. Usually I allow from year 2 to 6, but this one's a little bit more mature, a little bit more complex. So I think it's probably better suited to some of the older age groups. And what we are doing is looking at the idea of how to write from the perspective of an animal. And we're going to look at the first 2 pages of A Dance with Dragons, which is from the Game of Thrones series by George R.R. Martin. Now, that's not a series of books that I would recommend that your age group reads. Usually I like to recommend books like Blueback or Iron Man that are suitable for your age group and really rich books for you to enjoy and build your reading and comprehension skill with. But I was reading this Dance with Dragons for my own pleasure, and I thought, hey, that's a good lesson in there. So that's what we're going to be working on today. There's nothing inappropriate in these 2 pages, don't worry. So let's get started into the lesson. So one of the ways that we can help to improve our writing skill, the maturity of our writing skill, is by coming from the perspective of non-humans. We tend to write from the perspective of a human or about a human, so first person or third person. And it's cool to write from the perspective of an animal or of an inanimate object like a pencil. And let's have a look at how we can do that in this lesson. But before we get there, I want to show you some examples that might give you some ideas about what I'm trying to talk about. So the first example I would like to show you is this story about penguins. It's a story that was written by one of my students after doing this lesson with her. And I'm not going to read it to you now because I want to have plenty of time for this lesson, but I'm going to link it in the description box below. It's just called Penguins, and you can have a read of that in your own time. Again, linked below, this is The Fir Tree by Hans Christian Andersen, who wrote things like The Little Mermaid and Frozen. You'll be familiar with his stories. It's quite long. It's, I think it's about 10 pages long. But even if all you do is read the first page, to get a bit of a feel for the story, it's coming from the perspective of a pine tree or a Christmas tree as it sits in the forest, and then it gets cut down and sent to become a Christmas tree, and coming from the tree's experiences of life, which is cool. And the last one, this is called My Terrifying Ride. It's written by probably a year 2 student, and he was the winner of the Tim Winton writing competition a few years ago. But it's that same kind of an idea. It's coming from the perspective of a capsicum seed being eaten. And so it's a cool little story. It's only short. It's only like 1.5 pages. So you can have a read of that and see again coming from the perspective of an object. But this is a story that I want to show you. Again, this is linked in the description box below. What you can do, if you would like to, is you can print this off and have some highlighters ready for us to highlight as we go. But to start off with, I'm just going to read the story through, and then we can talk about some of the ideas within it. We're coming from the perspective of a warg, which, to put it simply, is basically just a wolf. It's not exactly a wolf, but we'll just say it's a wolf. The night was rank with the smell of man. The warg stopped beneath a tree and sniffed, his grey-brown fur dappled by shadow. A sigh of piney wind brought the man sent to him, over fainter smells that spoke of fox and hare, seal and stag, even wolf. Those were man smells too, the warg knew. The stink of old skins, dead and sour, near drowned, beneath the stronger scents of smoke and blood and rot. Only man stripped the skins from other beasts and wore their hides and hair. Wargs have no fear of man, as wolves do. Hate and hunger coiled in his belly, and he gave a low growl, calling to his one-eyed brother, his small, sly sister. As he raced through the trees, his packmates followed hard on his heels. They had caught the scent as well. As he ran, he saw through their eyes too, and glimpsed himself ahead. The breath of the pack puffed warm and white from their long grey jaws. Ice had frozen between their paws, hard as stone, but the hunt was on now, the prey ahead. Flesh, the Warg thought, meat. A man alone was a feeble thing, big and strong, with good sharp eyes, but dull of ear and deaf to smells. Deer and elk and even hares were faster, bears and boars fiercer in a fight. But men in packs were dangerous. As the wolf closed on the prey, the Warg heard the wailing of a pup, the crust of last night's snow breaking under clumsy man paws, the rattle of hard skins and the long grey claws men carried. Swords, a voice inside him whispered, spears. The trees had grown icy teeth, snarling down from the bare brown branches. One eye ripped through the undergrowth, spraying snow. His packmates followed, up a hill and down the slope beyond, until the wood opened before them and the men were there. One was female. The fur-wrapped bundle she clutched was her pup. Leave her for last, the voice whispered. The males are the danger. They were roaring at each other as men did, but the Warg could smell their terror. One had a wooden tooth as tall as he was. He flung it, but his hand was shaking and the tooth sailed high. So that's just the first 2 pages. We're not going to keep going. All right. So here we're looking at we're looking from the perspective of the wolf and how the wolf understands the world. So if we have a look at this part here, the crust of last night's snow breaking under clumsy man paws. So what that's saying is that the crust of last night's snow, so the snow that's on the ground, is breaking under the feet of the men or the feet of the humans. But how the Warg or this wolf understands the world is that a foot is a paw. So the same kind of a thing down here. The fur-wrapped bundle she held was her pup. So she's holding a fur-wrapped bundle of a baby, but to a wolf, a baby is called a pup. So we can work our way through looking at some of these things. So this is where I said, if you would like, you can print this page out in the link that's in the description box and use a highlighter, or else you can just have a piece of paper and you can just write the ideas down. They're mostly on the second page. So we can have a look here. That men in packs were dangerous. So we wouldn't usually call it a pack, but a wolf would. We would call it, say, a group or a family. So let's highlight or underline packs, and let's write next to it that what they mean is family. The wolf closed on the prey. The Warg heard the wailing of a pup. So here, what he means is baby. And the crust of last night's snow breaking under clumsy man paws, meaning feet. And the long grey claws they carried. Now it clarifies down here, swords, spears. And if you think about it, the way like a wolf's weapons are his teeth and his claws. So he's going to understand a weapon, a long grey weapon that's in a human's paw to be a claw. So we can know that that means sword, spear, or weapon of some description. So we can write these things down, highlight them and write them down. The next one we're going to look at is this idea of the trees had grown icy teeth. So that means this. Do you see how they sort of look like long teeth And remember, we're understanding the world from the perspective of a wolf. So he's going to look at them and go, oh, that's a fang. So coming back to here, the icy teeth would be icicles, snarling down from the bare brown branches. When I ripped through the undergrowth, his pack-mates followed. The fur wrap bundle she clutched was her pup, so we've talked about that. So there's one more to look at. They were roaring. Now, sometimes humans do roar, or he might even, Mr. Martin, the author, might even have said howling, but so he said roaring, which for a human would be something like shouting, yelling, maybe even screaming, if you think that you're about to be attacked by a pack of wolves. And then we also have this, the tooth sailed high, which we looked at above with the swords and the spears. So that vocabulary gathering is helping you to understand how we might understand the world from the perspective of an animal. So let's have a think about a couple of other animals. So say we were talking about a polar bear. So a hand or a foot, they would think of that as a paw. A nose would be a snout. A baby would be a cub. Skin would be fur. You could look up the collective term of a pack of polar bears. Another example might be a fish. So a hand would be a fin. Feet would be a tail. Lungs would be gills. Skin would be scales. A family would be a school or a shoal. A baby would be row, if I understand correctly. Okay, so now it's your turn to have a think. I would like you to choose a different animal of your choice, so not a wolf, a polar bear, or a fish, something else like a bird or a guinea pig, a cat, a tiger, an elephant, whatever it is that you want, a lizard. And I want you to think about a human's body parts and how that would relate to an animal. So what would a hand be for a bird? What would a foot be for a lizard? What would the skin be called? So writing down 4 or 5 things, just like I have, and then we'll have a look at how we can write and have a practice go at writing. So pause the video and write those things down. Okay, so my example is a koala. So the skin is fur, hands are claws, a baby is a joey, and I didn't know what a family of koalas was called, so I looked it up and it's called a colony. And I think back to 2020 when we had all those horrible bushfires, and I mean, it's not just in 2020, historically there are lots of bushfires where koalas get caught up in. But that was the image that came to mind when I was thinking about this scene that I was going to write about. One of the things that we need to do when we are writing descriptively is we want to try to build the description into the action. So if our koala was climbing up the tree, it was climbing up the coarse brown tree. Or if it was eating a gum leaf, it gobbled up the sweet smelling eucalypt leaf. So building the description into the action of what the character is doing. So that's what I've done here. I've started off by setting the scene. I haven't stated that it's a bushfire, but that's what it is. And you can pick it up from things like the boiling ash. So I crawled along the boiling ash earth, leaving my colony behind. I was desperate for water and my fur was singed. Then a strange, tall koala came to me. It picked me up with its blunted claws and carried me in its strange, furless arms. I felt like a joey back in its pouch, safe, suddenly safe and cared for. So this koala is in a bushfire It's managed to escape the fire. Now it's walking along the boiling hot earth, and a human has come to rescue it and take it to the vet and make it feel better. So the koala is seeing the human from its own perspective and understanding the human from its own perspective. So instead of being a baby in the human's arms, it's a joey in the pouch. Instead of coming from the koala's family, it's come from the koala's colony. It's this strange, tall koala who doesn't have any fur, because humans are taller than koalas and they have skin, not fur. So you're going to write a paragraph coming from your animal's perspective, and in that paragraph, it sees a human and understands the human from the perspective of your animal. So before I let you go, let me give you 2 more examples. I swam through the coral reef. As I swam through the coral reef, I saw a black 2-tailed dolphin shining a bright eye. Bubbles came from its jaws. Slowly, it touched me with its 5 miniature fins. So this is a dolphin seeing a human. I raced across the grassy oval, then pounced into my companion's arms. She picked me up with her paws, and I licked her snout until it was a watery mess. As she carried me back home, I felt like a pup in its mother's jaws, because you know how dogs carry their pups in their jaws. Okay, so there's a couple of examples. So this one's a dog being carried by its human. So using that vocabulary, write 3 or 4 sentences, understanding the world from your animal's perspective. So you see, you're the animal, you're the koala, you see a human and you see it's a tall, furless human, or you lick the human's snout, or you get picked up in the human's, you get picked up in the strange animal's arms. Okay, something like that. Okay, that brings me to the end of the lesson. It can be a little bit confusing, so I hope you got the idea. All right, thank you very much for joining me for this lesson, and I'd really love it if you could please thank me in return by liking this video and subscribing to my YouTube channel, and I'll see you at the next lesson.